I live in Washington State, in the Pacific Northwest. I used to work at a late-night diner on the side of the highway. I was 29 years old and often worked the closing shift. The diner closed at 2 a.m., which was incredibly late considering how sparsely populated the area was. Even so, given the proximity to the highway, there would usually be at least 1 or 2 customers in the building until closing time. Having grown up in the South and moved here, I noticed a difference in people. In the South, there's a big emphasis on hospitality and small talk. But here, people are kind but not overly friendly. I feel like the air here lends itself more to introversion. I used to be a waitress down south, and the customers there were a lot chattier. Up here, people seem to keep more to themselves. It was approaching closing time, and the kitchen's last call was at 2 a.m. Technically, the diner was advertised to close at 2, but it was frowned upon if a customer came in and ordered that late. However, it did happen that night. At around 1:50 a.m., a heavyset man came in. He wore awkwardly high jeans, a gray shirt tucked in, a brown jacket, and he had a brown mustache and glasses. I asked if he'd like to sit at the bar or a table. He smiled and asked for a table. I smiled back, gave him a menu, and informed him that the kitchen closes in 10 minutes. He quickly decided on a black coffee and some French toast, and introduced himself as Nolan. Luckily, his order was simple. I went to the kitchen and told the chef, who gave me a slightly annoyed look, to which I just responded with, "I know." Nolan waved me over as I returned to the dining area, something unusual for people around here at this hour. He started small talk, asking if I was from the area and complaining about the potholes in the roads. I gave vague answers. He pressed a little too much about where I was from, but I never give my exact location, of course. He said he'd moved to town recently, and as he spoke, I analyzed his body language. He seemed like a somewhat nerdy older guy, maybe even flirting. It didn't bother me much, I was used to that back home. After finishing his meal, I dropped off his check before he asked for it, subtly implying we were closing. He paid by card and left. As I gathered my things and said goodbye to the chef, I walked out to my car. There were 3 cars in the lot. Mine, the chef's, and a third one I couldn't explain. It was an older silver car, maybe a Toyota or Audi from around 2005. I couldn't tell if someone was inside, but it was parked near the highway. I wondered if it was Nolan's. I started driving home when my dashboard dinged, indicating low tire pressure. My rear passenger tire's pressure dropped rapidly, and soon the entire car shook. I pulled over to the side of the highway and saw my tire was completely flat. Suddenly, a pair of headlights appeared, and a car slowed down near me. I hurried back to my car and locked the door. There was a light tap on the window. It was Nolan, smiling and waving. He asked through the window if I needed help. I told him I had a flat tire. He played dumb, asking which tire. When I told him, he offered to help, saying he knew how to change a flat tire. I told him my boyfriend was on his way to help. As this conversation happened, I discreetly dialed 911. I whispered into the phone that I was in danger, trying not to let Nolan notice. He suddenly walked away from the window. As I whispered to the operator that I thought he slashed my tire, the deafening sound of glass shattering made me scream. Nolan had smashed my passenger window. He reached in, grabbed my phone, and threw it towards the highway. Then, he ran back to his car and sped off. I waited in terror until I finally heard police sirens. They arrived, helped me, and escorted me home. Though they investigated and looked at the diner's surveillance footage, they never caught Nolan. I never returned to that diner job again. I wasn't going to risk that man finding me.